Welcome to the Camp Branch Ontario Genealogy Society, and we have a great speaker this evening. So let me begin with the fact that this is live streaming. If you wish to be on camera and on the internet, come up here and stand like I do and have a little chit chat and everybody will see you. We are going to, now how am I? Okay. 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 Welcome to the Camp Branch of the Ontario Genealogy Society. It is an organization that is preserving and promoting family history for over 50 years, and there are over 30 branches across Ontario. There we go. Okay. So we're learning tonight. This is something new for me too. So this is the Ontario Genealogy, and they have workshops, webinars. We have a conference, and you're able to join the society at any time. This is their Facebook page, and I've been on it a few times, and it's great. There's different people that are on there sharing things and asking questions, and it just is a wonderful application that we now finally have. The members, there are a variety of databases. If you belong to the Ontario Genealogy, monthly webinars, variety of discounts, quarterly family magazines, updates, e-news, e-weekly, forum, blogs, and many more things if you care to go to their webpage and find them. Camp Branch. We primarily deal with the Camp Branch research and general family history. We are mentoring, assistance, and help you in any way that we can to try and get you through your brick walls. There's a quarterly newsletter, monthly meetings, and there's a very strong resourceful collection in our library. And this is some of our library. If you go to our Camp Branch library room, if you take the elevator to the second floor, go straight from the elevator, you'll go through what is called their McHugh room of the library, and we're in behind it. It's very accessible. There's wheelchair doors that open for you, and there's elevators and everything that you need to make it accessible for someone. So I can't see what I'm looking at here. I can't read it. I'm sorry, I can't.
Oh, sorry, that's just part of our website. If people are interested in learning more about our website,
Yeah.
and that was just a little
Yeah.
on our members that
Yeah.
we record. So if they were to go there, that's just an example of how they can get to our recorded meetings.
Oh, okay, yes. You go to upcoming events. We'll go to it. I can't read the small print, I'm sorry. Saturday, February 14th, which is tomorrow, we're having a Family Day open house, and it's from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. And if you want to join us, feel free to come up, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, bring a relative, bring whoever you'd like to bring grandchildren that may be interested down the road. It should be a fun day. There's an Irish call to arms Thursday, February 19th at 7 p.m. at the Chatham-Kent Museum, if anyone's interested in going there. Our March 13th meeting is Baldwin Settlement with Scottish Research. March 28th is Wallaceburg Museum is having a giant yard sale, indoor yard sale at their museum. April 10th is the Ukrainian Research here. April 11th, there's a Toronto branch workshop, and it's a full day, and it's Finding Your Upper Canada Ancestors. May 29th to 31 is our OGS conference in Barrie this year, Tracks Through Time. This is something that goes on every year that we have, and it's always in a different location every year, so it's not always the same, and people get to research in a different area if they're interested in that. Now tonight, before we get into Brenda having her wonderful thing with, I can't wait for the DNA. I'm really excited about it. I have a couple of announcements. One, Fran has something that she's going to present to our publicity person who goes out and about. We go out and about to different places. This morning we were at the Active Lifestyle Center. We're going to be at Buxton. We're all over Kent County almost, telling people about our OGS and our meetings and so on. So Fran, do you want to come up and show people what you and your husband have been so doing for us? I think you'll be really surprised at this. And Linda's going to take it with her when she goes on our excursions.
Okay. Yeah, I had helped Linda and done a few of the events last year, and I thought we need something for the table. So, of course, I go home and I tell my husband about this wonderful project I have, which he is just thrilled to hear about. So I have it, I always have this picture in my head. My husband always, he can somehow get in there and picture it for me. So we have made, this is not just me, my family has done a lot of this. And right now I'd like to have Linda come up, and I'm going to present this to Linda. And this is actually something for the programs or wherever there's an event, this can be put up.
This came out of Fran's head, translated to Joe, translated to her daughter, and the three of them have worked on this diligently to create a family tree.
Fran, tip it a bit so they see the roots. See the roots?
That was the centerpiece for
Sorry.
for today's.
This is, yeah, this was, I brought it in, I brought it in for today because I was at the Active Life Center. And I had a few comments on it, which I'm glad, because to me it is nothing special, but a lot of people thought it was. So I would like to present this to Linda and to the OGS, Kent Branch.
Thank you. This will remain on our table everywhere we go. This is our centerpiece.
Put it at the back so we can see it.
Thanks, Fran.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also have a certificate here for Eileen Richards for gratitude for her loyal and valuable service to Kent Branch. And she's shaking her head, no, you don't want to come up on camera, I take it. Come over here on this side.
How many years?
Since the very beginning. So, on behalf of the Kent Branch Ontario Genealogy Society, we'd like to give you this as a recognition of all your work that you've done over the years.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
That's nice.
And I have one more little thing before we go. Sunday is our 50th anniversary of our Canadian flag. If anybody doesn't know, so it's a nice little thing to celebrate and remember. So now I will turn this over to Cindy so she can introduce our speaker.
Hi, everybody, and everybody at home. Thank you for your patience as we go through this process of learning. We truly appreciate you joining us from home. Tonight's presentation, we're very lucky to have Brenda agree to give us her presentation. Linda was an educator for 39 and some odd months, almost 40 years. And she's quite active in the Chatham-Kent Blacks Historical Society. She had the opportunity to do her own DNA and had some exciting results, and she's here tonight to share that with us. So please welcome Brenda.
Okay, I'm so delighted to be here with you, and I hope you will find what I'm going to give you interesting. I'm loving the idea of doing DNA to go further and further back in history, especially to find those missing pieces to puzzles. I don't know if you have that same burning desire to find that missing piece. I'm still looking. I'm sure probably many of you are looking for that missing piece also.
Just a smidgen.
I need the mic up closer to,
Perfect.
okay. So now I'm ready to start with the slides.
So this is the clicker, so you can click as soon as it comes up, or you can do it from here. Let's just see what's going on. There it goes. This one right here.
Okay,
Right there.
so how do I
And this is the slide that's on. This is your next one. So if you click it again. Perfect. That's what's on the screen.
all right, good. We all know that elephants only give birth to little elephants, giraffes to giraffes, dogs to dogs, and so on for every type of living creature. But why is this so? Deoxyribonucleic acid is the reason. The answer lies in a molecule called deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. Did I do pretty good, Marcia? Okay. And it contains the biological instructions that make each species unique. DNA, along with the instructions it contains, is passed from adult organisms to their offspring during reproduction. Is it going to tell me which slide I'm on to the number? Because you're numbered for me. Let's go back. Okay. DNA is found inside a special area of the cell called the nucleus. Because the cell is very small, and because organisms have many DNA molecules per cell, each DNA molecule must be tightly packaged. This packaged form of the DNA is called a chromosome. And many of you know, if you're a scientist or whatever, you know that everyone has 23 chromosomes. Okay. The information stored in DNA is coded with 4 chemical bases, and I think you can see them there. Adenine A, guanine G, cytosine C, and thymine T. Human DNA consists of about 3 billion bases, and more than 99% of those bases are the same in all people. The order or sequence of these bases determines the information available for building and maintaining an organism, similar to the way in which letters of the alphabet appear in a certain order to form words and sentences. Okay, who discovered DNA? Johann Friedrich Miescher was a Swiss physician and biologist. He was the first researcher to isolate and identify nucleic acid, paving the way for the identification of DNA as the carrier of inheritance. He first observed DNA in the late 1800s, but nearly a century passed from that discovery until researchers unraveled the structure of the DNA molecule and realized its central importance to biology. Alfred Day Hershey was an American Nobel Prize winning bacteriologist and geneticist. He was born in Michigan and received his BA in chemistry at Michigan State University in 1930 and his PhD in bacteriology in 1934, taking a position shortly thereafter at the Department of Bacteriology at Washington University in St. Louis. He began performing experiments with bacteriographs with other scientists in 1940 and observed that when two different strands were infected, they have the same bacteria. The two viruses may exchange genetic information. He moved with his assistant, Martha Chase, to Cold Spring Harbor, New York in 1950 to join the Carnegie Institution of Washington's Department of Genetics, where he and Chase performed the famous Hershey-Chase experiment in 1952. This experiment was a series of experiments conducted in 1952 by Alfred and Martha that helped to confirm that DNA is the genetic material. This experiment provided additional evidence that DNA, not protein, was the genetic material of life. Martha Cowles Chase was an American geneticist known for being a member of the 1952 Hershey-Chase team that experimentally showed that DNA, rather than protein, is the genetic material of life. She was greatly respected in her field. Hershey and Chase did two experiments to prove that DNA is the carrier of the genetic information. First, they grew phages, or viruses which infect bacteria, in a medium containing radioactive sulfur. This marked all the proteins of the phages, or the hull, radioactive. Then they used these phages to infect bacteria. To do so, the phages attaches to the surface of the bacteria and injects its genetic material. In the second experiment, the proof, if you want to say so, they marked the DNA of the phages radioactive with radioactive phosphorus. They repeated the experiment and found the radioactivity in the sediment with the bacteria, proving that the DNA had indeed entered the bacteria. If the DNA wouldn't be the carrier, it wouldn't have entered the bacteria and would have stayed in solution. So, have you wondered who your ancestors were? Now, this is a picture of myself and my brother, Dennis. My parents had 4 children, and we're the only 2 living of those 4. My brother was killed in Vietnam in 1968, and my sister died of cancer in 1995. So who am I is the question that I wanted to know. I wanted to have more information about myself. And my brother is going to help me find it. Okay, on my mother's side, my mother was born not too far from here, Fletcher, Ontario, if you know where Fletcher is. She was a Shad. So this is the Shad family tree, and I've highlighted in yellow how I fit into my direct descendants, ancestors, fit into the tree. It starts with Hans Shad, who was from Germany and came to the United States about 1725 and married Elizabeth Jackson. She was a person of color. They had 2 children, Hans Jr. and Jeremiah. So I'm from the Jeremiah line. So if you can follow this chart, you can kind of see where I come from. And I can't really see it that well. It's small here. Jeremiah was the father of Abraham Doris. Abraham Doris is pretty famous. He was on a stamp, I believe, in 2009. It goes down to Garrison. Garrison was the 8th child and the brother of Mary Ann Shadd. Okay, and then it goes on down. Garrison would be my great-grandfather, my great-grandfather. Garrison had several children. William was his oldest son, and William was my grandfather. Going on, William was married twice. My mother was in the second wife. I've got Thomas highlighted there in yellow. My Aunt Dorothy Shadd Shreve-Sagi always told me, she said, Brenda, you need to look at the mothers, the female line, because that's when you get more of your relatives. And that's how I found my lovely cousins who are sitting in the audience tonight. So my mother was the second to last child born. And in African American culture, the second to last born is called a knee baby. And you're wondering, what is a knee baby? Well, the youngest child would be nursed by the mom. And so mom would have to have the other one on her knee trying to quiet her. So they call that child, male or female, the knee baby. So my mother was the knee baby.
Like your sibling's son.
Okay, this is a picture of Abraham Doris Shadd, and I mentioned him before. And his eldest child was Mary Ann Shadd, and they're pretty well known. This is a picture of Mary Ann's brother, Garrison, and his wife, Harriet. They are my great-grandparents. This is a picture of William Shadd and Ina Thomas Shadd. Ina was from Windsor, and so her family goes back to Colchester and back to other places in the world. These are my parents, Monzie and Maud Shadd Edmonds. Now, interesting, I know youth, at least I know, I think the name Monzie is quite different. I found through Googling in that Monzie is a surname in England. My father told me when he started school in Georgia, he was born in Georgia, he couldn't quite say his name, it wasn't clear to the teacher, so the teacher renamed him Monzie. So the teacher must have had some English background, because going again to Googling, Monzie is a surname in England. So those are my parents. Now this person, Ricky Troop, I met him through the internet, I want to say in the 1999, 2000. He was researching the same last names. I want to go back. Okay, my father's name is Edmonds, but listening to his family's history is not documented like my mother's family. It was mainly oral history. And he told me, he said, you know, before the Civil War, our surname was not Edmonds, it was Troop. And if you're looking for relatives, look for Troop. So I looked for Troops, and then he gave me some of the first names to search those out. So around 1999, 2000, Ricky Troop and I were on the internet and met via the internet, and we were researching the same names. I've been several places, libraries, like we have the library collection here, finding census records and whatever records they had to further my American history. I know the Shadds, I knew that history. So Ricky said, well, why don't you come to our family reunion? It's in St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, that was in 2001. 9/11 was September 11th, 2001. His family reunion was 2 weeks later, and everybody told me, don't fly to St. Louis. We don't know what's going to go. I said, well, if it's my time, then God is going to be with me. So I went to the family reunion, and then that was his wife, Ricky and his wife, and some other members of his Troop family, and they treated me so royally. They said, you're the missing link, you're helping us to go back a generation, and that was true because Ricky's great-grandfather, Obadiah Troop. And my great-grandfather, Wallace Troop, were brothers. Now, Wallace was from the Troop plantation, and I'll go into that a little bit further. Wallace Obadiah, but Wallace changed his name to Edmonds. I don't know why, but he changed his name to Edmonds. So Ricky is the one that's really helping me to move forward with learning more on my father's side. Okay, now this last year, I met this lady. I've never met her in person, Ruby Edmund Parrott. Now sometimes the family has the name Edmonds with the S on it. That's the way my name is spelled. Sometimes they have it without the S, and they could do that if they chose to. Okay, so Ruby is living. She's 100 years old, and I'm hoping to meet her this year. But her DNA matched my DNA through Ancestry.com. I did my DNA there, and Ancestry.com has 3 different kinds. Well, I've learned that there are 3 different kinds of DNA. There's autosomal DNA. This is a test that can be given to either male or female, and it'll give you both lines. It's not gender specific, in other words. Anyone can take the test and get the results for both branches of their family. Then there's another DNA called Y-DNA, and that's a male can only do that, and it will show the paternal line. Then there's another one called mitochondrial DNA, and that goes through the maternal line, just the female line. So anyway, my DNA through Ancestry.com was the autosomal DNA, because if it had been the double X, Ruby has a different line through there, so we would never pick up. So the autosomal line was the only way we could connect. So her grandson is the one that contacted me through Ancestry.com. His name is Byron. And Byron gave me pictures of her. Isn't she lovely? I'm planning to meet her this year, 2015. They had a family reunion in Georgia this past year. I was not able to attend, and she was there. So I'm hoping, to meet her, but she takes us back, not another generation, but it adds to the brothers. Wallace and Obadiah had another brother, Charles, and we're still trying to find other relatives. Now, Ricky said in 2001, when I went to the family reunion, he says, Brenda, we've got to do DNA. That was my first exposure to DNA. He said, we have to do DNA to prove if we're really, really, really related. I said, Ricky, I have to see if I can get my brother's DNA, because that's the only way we're going to make sure that we're really, really related. So I talked to my brother, and he said, why do you want my DNA? You're always doing something. Why don't you just stop? And he just kept talking, and I said, brother, I will pay for it. Oh, well, okay. I'll give it up. And so it was about 2006, I believe. Now, this document is dated 2014, and I called Ricky to ask him why. I knew my brother wouldn't know the answer. But he said he went to the website, and he obviously went in May of 2014, and they reprinted the certificate, and then, of course, they put that date. But the actual DNA was done in about 2006. And those are the markers at the bottom. Those same numbers are the same on my brother's certificate. So it was a 100% match. And so Ricky said when he got the results, he had goose pimples. Now there's another part of this story that I'm still working on. Before my father and his brothers passed away, I was fortunate enough to get them to sit down and tell me the oral history. So the records are on a cassette. And now I've got to figure out how to get the cassette information digital. So as soon as I can do that, then I can give Ricky and others copies of the oral history that my father and uncles gave. But in that oral history, my uncle mentioned that he had an uncle, Obadiah Troop, not Edmonds, but Troop. And so when I shared this information again, he said, Brenda, I'm getting goose pimples. Hurry up and get those documents changed over so that I'll be able to hear those voices and maybe he can go back further. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm trying here. Oh, bless your heart. Cindy helped clear up this, but she said everything was fine. The small numbers that you saw on the certificate are reproduced here. I wanted you to be able to see the numbers, different kit numbers, but the numbers are the same. So it just shows that Dennis and Ricky truly are related. Okay, so who are we? According to Ricky's information, and when I look in the mirror, I know this, we are African Americans with origins from Georgia. The last plantation of servitude was Valdosta Plantation that was owned by Governor George M. Troop. The oldest paternal lineage was Lee, who was born about 1800. And I was just so pleased. You can't believe how pleased I was to find that out. And we know now that Lee had at least 3 sons, Wallace, Obadiah, and Charles. Okay, now in my little book on the table over there, I have some records again from Ricky. He transcribed the slave records into an Excel document. And so you can look over there and you can see the listing of the slaves that Governor George Troop had in 1826, 1846, 1856, 1860, and it also has the census for 1870. I don't know if you know, but in the census in the United States, they were responsible for listing the slaves, but only listing the number, not their names and not their ages. So in his case, George Troop had lots of slaves. He might say in his census document that he has 5 males age 15, 3 females age 30, no names. So going to the census prior to 1870 would not help an African-American person. Ricky was lucky enough to find these personal records of Governor George M. Troop. To further along, it really helps us, but we're still puzzled by some of the names on there. We're trying to figure out exactly who they are. I do have my little notebook over there. I guess Governor Troop was pretty well known. There is, he used his slaves as collateral for a loan. I think it was in 1826. So he had to prove that he had enough people, enough slaves to warrant a loan from the bank for $9,000. In 1846, he needed a loan for $20,000. And so there are more listed on there. It's in the book over there. And he died in 1856. And I guess he had a son, George Jr. I guess they were trying to see the value of their property, you know, in terms of either selling or whatever they were going to do. It's in my little book over there. Very interesting. And Ricky is a little angry about it. He said, Brenda, go on the internet and look and see George Troop's face is on U.S. currency for Georgia. So I have copies of that in there too. So when he saw that, he said, Brenda, it makes me want to change my name. I said, well, Ricky, you can't undo the past. The past is the past. You have to just live with it and be grateful that we're able to find these relatives. And again, I've added Charles on there, and that's Byron. And he has an interesting name, and I don't know the history behind his name, Byron Huggabook. He's African American, and that's quite an unusual name. But he was how we were able to find the third child there, Charles. Okay. So Ricky found out because he went to African DNA. And that's, you see, what is it, Gates, Lewis Gates on television. He does African DNA. So Ricky went to that DNA source and had his done, I'm not sure when, but he found that his direct ancestors are from the Mbenzili people from the Republic of Cameroon, and they were pygmies. And I said, Ricky, look at me. I don't look like a pygmy, but it just goes back to better nutrition, and it goes back to who they married. Because Ricky said, you know, my grandfather was short, but his wife was tall, and his wife was a mulatto. So there's still mixing there, and so that's, I'm sure, how I became as tall as I am. From that. And this is his certificate of ancestry from that site that Lewis Gates, and I said, oh, I want one of those. So my sons are listening to me, knowing that I can document the Shad history, because the Shads were educated and they had ledgers and Bibles and ways to document the history. But I wanted to find out on my father's side. So who am I? Still trying to find out. So my sons in, I think, 2012, had my brother do Y DNA through National Geographics. And so according to the data there, my brother is 51% African, 17% Mediterranean, 16% Northern European, 10% Asian, and 5% South African. So it's not, I mean, this is through National Geographic. It's not like the African ancestry giving a specific tribe, but it's giving percentages. And so I'm still trying to put me in there somewhere. So my youngest son, Devin, as a Christmas gift, paid for me to have it done through African ancestry. And I just gave you the top of the letter. It says, we're pleased to report that my mitochondrial DNA shows that I am European. And I said, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a European, I see something else. So I was very discouraged, but I'm still looking for who I am. So they were talking about a haplogroup on here. I didn't quite understand what that was, but haplogroups represent specific mitochondria patterns found among the world's populations. About 60,000 years ago, a group of individuals moved out of Africa, so that means all of us originated from Africa. And their descendants, through the natural process of mutation, formed the M and N haplogroups. As mankind moved throughout Africa and into the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and the Americas, unique genetic mutations were passed down to their descendants. Their descendants in Asia, Australia, and parts of Europe evolved their own specific types. So today, let me try the next slide. That's my certificate showing that. And you see it doesn't have all those pretty African symbols around the edge. But I have it. European population belonging to the haplogroup H. Now this is what I'm reading. I've typed out what's at the bottom of this, and showing how people migrated to different parts of the world, starting in Africa. And so today Europe is populated by the haplogroups H, I, J, K, T, U, V, W, and X. Asia by A, B, C, D, E, F, G, M, and Y. The Americas by the Asian branches A, B, C, D, and X. New Guinea by P and Q, and Austria by further M and N types. Today, identifying your personal haplogroup is a gateway to understanding your ancestry. It's a gateway, it's a beginning. So haplogroup H is the one that I belong to based on my DNA sent to this company. Is a very common haplogroup across the world, including nearly 50% of Europeans. It is a descendant of haplogroup HV and began populating Europe some 20,000 years ago. So this is going way back in my DNA. After a glacial period ended approximately 15,000 years ago, people who thousands of years earlier had left Northern Europe migrated to the south to escape the cold. So this was sent again with my lovely certificate that said I'm European. Okay, so here's the answer, because I didn't really quite understand what they were saying. So my DNA is the same as my mother's, and her mother, and her mother, and her mother. It doesn't change. And the same for males. If you're doing the Y DNA, it stays the same. So this is what happened. I have a European ancestor, and I have her DNA, and that's not going to change. So I'm still trying to figure out my African roots. Okay, this is a lovely, lovely map of Africa. And they sent this to me too, it was lovely, but I couldn't find out where I fit in that picture. So my cousin, and some of you may know her, Kathy Davis Tatsu, gave me these pictures, and I believe this is the person I'm looking for. Elizabeth Simpson, Elizabeth Hutchinson Simpson. And if you'll look at their facial structure, I believe that that is her daughter. I just need verification on that or confirmation on that. So Kathy, as soon as the weather breaks, she said there's another cousin that lives in Ecorse, Michigan, and we're going to go visit that cousin, and hopefully we can unlock some of the questions that I have about my DNA. This was taken from the 1851 census, that's Canadian census. American census is done on the even year, Canadian on the odd year. So my great-grandmother was Sarah Mahalia Simpson, who was born in Colchester, Harrow, it was called Upper Canada at that time. Her parents were Levi Simpson, and he was of African descent. And her mother was Elizabeth Hutchinson. Now in the census, it lists her as Hutchinson. I've looked at some census records and it's Hutchins sometimes and Hutchinson. So I'm still looking, trying to find the answer to that. Okay, now I'm going back to DNA. And if you're interested in having your DNA, maybe some of you already have. This is what a DNA kit looks like from Ancestry.com. It's like a test tube, and what you have to do is they want you to wait 30 minutes at least. Don't eat or drink anything. That means coffee, water, anything, 30 minutes prior to when you're going to take your test. So what I did was just waited until morning to take my sample. So I spit in the test tube, and then you seal it and send it back to them. And it has an activation code on there. You have to give them the activation code so they can put it with my Ancestry.com account. I found out just recently why I don't have my daughter's, because I did purchase a kit for her, and I said, did you send it in? She lives in Virginia. Yes, Mom, I sent it in December. I said, well, I don't have the results. So I called the company thinking the company was not doing their job. And they said, you have to activate it before they match it with your account. So they've had her tube of DNA refrigerated since December, so I'm hoping the sample is still good. So as soon as I get those results, we'll know more about her percentages of DNA.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How would your brothers differentiate from yours, even though you're siblings of the same couple?
That's a very good question, and I can't answer that question. Maybe someone else, Ken, can you answer that?
Depends on the type of test. The Y chromosome DNA with male ancestry, so the mother is valuable there, and hers will trace her mother's ancestry.
Right.
But the
The
autosomal,
autosomal though should match.
That's where I was going. Do the same test, and therefore you should get parallel results.
similar results, you won't,
Identical results.
not identical,
No, you have different.
not identical.
But-
Okay. We're live streaming, so the audience is not hearing your questions. So the question, well, I'm going to walk
We do that.
and let you ask the question again.
I'm wondering why wondering if the test couldn't be the same for the sister and the brother. And of course, the gentleman in the back suggested that they have to be the same test, which just makes sense. Because of course, the men's test won't give the same results as the women's test. That my suggestion was they both have the same test.
You have more to add to that? Nothing more to add to that? Okay. But we're doing our best with this live simulcast stuff. Okay. You saw that my brother took the Y DNA test through National Geographic's. I took the mitochondrial DNA test through African Ancestry, trying to find out about my ancestors, which gave me the history of my mother, not my father, just my mother. Okay, so I did take a test through Ancestry.com. And my brother is 51% African and I'm 60% African. It's close. So this shows the results of that test. And the breakdown, those are all African countries there. So I was trying to give a breakdown of the percentages. And it also, my mother, if you had seen my mother at age 24, she looked a lot like Susan in the back there. Susan, I don't know if she's had long hair. She looked like a First Nations person. And my mother said it was First Nations, but she couldn't identify the name of the tribe. So you see that did show up too in the DNA. I think you don't see too much in terms of First Nations because they need a database. They need more First Nations people to take the test so that they would have a broader database. Okay, this is my European side, and I'm 7% Irish. Cousins, huh? I have cousins in the audience, okay. So there's a lot of mixing, but it does show based on the shad history, because the shads were from Germany, going back over to that part of the world. Okay, this is my first son, and he's 75% African. His father is an African American, and he's 8% Irish, more than I am, which is interesting. Now, my second son is less African, and he's less Irish. He's 3% Irish. I don't know why, but that's what the test said. My third son, who's really my nephew, my sister died and I took him and finished raising him, is 29% African. and 71 European, and 37% Irish. Well, his father was Irish, so we kind of figured that out. And this is my husband, and I was hoping that he would come tonight, but he's suffering with a cold, and he didn't want to pass the germ on.
Thank you.
You know, so he's at home. He's 45% African and 54% European, and he's 16% Irish. So I bought him a green tie to wear next month. The interesting thing to me is my husband is much browner than I am, but he's less African. So that melanin, I don't know how that melanin changes, but these were the results. Now, this is the question that Cindy asked. She said, well, how do Canadians get the test? And I called Ancestry.com and asked them for the price for Canadians to take the Ancestry.com test. And they told me that there's a law right now where they cannot take the sample and mail it from Canada to, I think their offices are in Utah or somewhere like that. But they promised me on the phone that Ancestry.com will be available to Canadians this year, 2015. So you could order a kit and you could have it mailed to your Canadian address and then send the sample back. 23andMe is a company that's already doing this in Canada, and it's $199 plus the shipping. And I'm not sure where they're shipped to, but I do know I have a cousin that lives in London, Ontario. Interesting DNA. He had 23andMe done a while ago, Jim Tree, and he had Ancestry.com. Now, how he got his results over there is none of my business, but he did 2 tests. And on the Ancestry.com, it came on my site that were distant cousins. His niece, his niece comes off as my 3rd cousin. So there's still some glitches there. So they've got to figure out things. Okay, the family tree DNA was where my brother and my cousin Ricky got their DNA, and I don't know the price for that. National Geographics, which is the one my sons had my brother give us DNA supply, is $199 for Canada plus shipping. And there was another test called Dynamic Testing Solutions, and you see the prices, they're just all over the place. Very, very expensive for that. Okay, this is information from Family Tree DNA testing. It's describing the test kit, which is different from the one from Ancestry.com. They send you a long swab, and that's the way the one from African ancestry is a long, like a Q-tip. And you had to swab the inside of your mouth and put the Q-tip in 2 separate bags and send it back to them. So I have a picture of that kit showing you what it looks like. And I discovered that Family Tree DNA is a partner with National Geographic. It's still not the same company. So on here you see the swab, and I guess they're asking for 2 different samples to go into the company to get the results. And that's the end. I do have my email address there. If you have any information that can help me, I would love it. If you have some questions, you can send the questions to me. I don't know if I can answer them, but I might be able to send you to a source. Google always works. Now, I do have some handouts over there. I don't have enough for everyone, but I'm going to give a copy to Cindy. I'm going to send the copy, email a copy to her. So if you don't get a copy, don't worry. You can go to the website and get a copy. And it's just explaining, it's showing family trees, showing you the difference in the Y and the mitochondrial DNA and the autosomal DNA. And then some questions, some frequent questions that many people ask about DNA. So if you have any questions, I would entertain those. I don't know if I can answer, but I know that I'm having fun with this, and there's still more to come for me. So I'm gonna walk back here so that we can get you on mic.
Yeah, I've had my DNA done about 6 years ago. And on the Y, a man gets tested both for parents, male, his father and mother. And that's why the X is for the women, and that is only for the female, the mother line, as far back as you can go.
The male can do that. The male can test, but it's his mother's lineage. And that goes back, that's right. But on the mother's side, it goes back mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, strictly, and your surname's gonna change every time.
Right.
And that's your mitochondrial.
But also the Y, which is, it can go back father, grandfather, great-grandfather, etc.
What the other thing that one needs to take into account is these things called mutations.
Exactly.
They take place every 8 to 10 generations, and that causes things just to tweak a little bit.
Right.
I had my DNA, it was a Y DNA test done in 2009, and my goal, my known ancestors, I can go right back to 1781 in the county of Cork in Ireland. But my surname is not, my surname is not an Irish name, it's an English name. And typically, the people with my last name emanate from the county of Norfolk in northern England, and they're Anglo-Celtic. Mine didn't work out that way. I actually joined a group through Ancestry.com, and I was blown away in the fact that none of the people with my surname was a match. And about, I'm going to say 4 months later, I had received communication from Ancestry.com, which actually tied me into another line, it's spelled H-A-U, in the Lower Saxony in Germany. So rather than that English connection, there was a German connection. Of course, you put an S on H-A-U, that's the German word for house, which pretty close to how my name is. In fact, in Ireland, it was kind of back and forth between house and house. There is an Englishman in there someplace because probably we went from Germany to England to Ireland. And so
That's proving that you don't stop.
interesting, but it really didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. The autosomal will, that is based on the premise that you as an individual will inherit 50% of your genetic makeup from mom, 50% from dad, and therefore 25 from each of the grandparents and 12.5% from each of the great-grandparents. And so it goes back, but diminishes rather rapidly. So after about 7 generations, you're less than something like 1/3 of 1%. So it's difficult to confirm. But for the first, I'm going to say 5 generations, you can be quite accurate. And it doesn't go back just one line. Autosomal goes back like a true tree. It goes back all of your lines, but it does not tell you which line that you're connected with. And to further complicate it, sometimes there's this thing called intermarriage. You might end up being related to that individual twice, and that messes the results up.
Well, that's why the DNA is one tool,
That's right.
just one tool to use to discover your genealogy.
Why your brother and you would have a different makeup, DNA makeup, is essentially because what you inherit from your mom and your dad, the only consistent thing that you will inherit will be the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. All the other chromosomes are random. So he would inherit maybe 11, you might have 3 the same or 2 different from your brother, and that's why you get this difference in percentages.
Sounds like he should have done the presentation. Very knowledgeable. Tell us your name, it's simulcast.
Last name is Travis, the first name is Murray.
Thank you, Merv, for that. Any other questions or comments?
Another thing, people should realize that do not get your DNA done unless you're ready for a surprise. And disappointment.
Okay, now will you say your name too?
Carl Heimgate. I got mine done on my father's side. That was a surprise. Taiwanese Aboriginal. My mother's side, African.
Okay. Any other questions or comments to make? Okay, again, if you have anything that you can help me with or a question, my email address is there. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. That was a very interesting presentation, and you can tell how passionate you are, and you just love this.
I do.
So on behalf of the branch, we would like to thank you for coming and taking the time to put this together and to share your story with us.
Thank you so
Greatly
very much.
appreciated. And in honor of Black History Month, it was definitely
Yes.
we do have one, Tom, if you're feeling comfortable, if you'd like to come and share your little surprise that you received when you did your DNA. I think folks at home would like to hear that, and folks in the room would love to see it as well. Tom Mountain did his DNA 10 years ago, that's what I thought. Okay, so this is Tom Mountain. And while Tom's getting ready, I really want to thank Merv. He was the fellow that was speaking. Merv graciously did a wonderful interview with a local reporter, and it was in the Chatham Daily News on Saturday, and it was in one of our other local papers as well. So thank you very much, Merv, for doing that. It was greatly appreciated. It was great publicity for the branch, and it was a really good story. Another really good story.
Hi, I'm Tom Mountain, and I come from Hamilton. I went to one of those OGS conferences, which was just mentioned this evening. It's in May this year. And to my surprise, they were doing DNA tests for free. Ooh. And it was from the group from Utah. So I took it. And it's just unbelievable because it was free, and why not?
Free is good.
Yeah, and one of the requirements of this, because free is not always free, right?
Absolutely.
But, they want something out of you. So you had to, and Brenda, did you have to submit any genealogy with your test or not?
No, I'm a member of Ancestry, so I have the genealogy.
But if you hadn't been, did they not ask you for it? Okay. So if you're just paying for the kit, I suppose you can just say, I just want to know and what the numbers are. And this did end up in Ancestry too. So I thought, oh, okay, so you have to submit your family tree to Ancestry, and you're required to do at least 3 generations. So I thought, well, that's okay. I guess I can handle that. And knowing what they're going to do with it, they're going to stick it on Ancestry, right? And, some people have trepidation about putting things on the internet. I really don't think it's a problem as long as people are deceased, what really doesn't matter. I didn't care about myself being on there, but so I did it. And just the year before that, I by chance, somebody had met this gentleman from Grimsby, and his name was Mountain. And they said, well, you got to go meet him. I live in Chatham. And the call came from someone who lives in Beamsville. You know, the only thing about Grimsby, like they're just next door, right? I said, why don't you go meet him? Oh, no, you're much better at that. You go see him. So I phoned this guy and I said, can I come and visit you? So off I trotted and I said, well, you're from, you know, this area, the same Mountain last name, and it's not very common, right? So we might be related. And how could we be related? So where did your father, grandfather come from? Well, Dundas, the other side of Hamilton, right? Oh, in Burlington area. And I said, well, that's interesting. My fourth great grandfather came from England, and he went up to Grey County, Durham, and his brother, who came with him, stayed in Dundas. I said, you know, we're probably related, and I asked him who this. So he knew his parents and he was grandparents. Vaguely knew nothing beyond that. And he said, I don't think I can help you. But I said, well, I think you must be related somehow. But and his wife pops up. Well, we have a shoebox here.
These pictures.
And in the shoebox was these letters that people had written, and so we got the paper out and tried to do diagrams and piece it together who they're naming. And you know, women pay more attention to this than men do, and so she was quite more helpful than he was. Oh yeah, that's so and so and that's so and so. It wasn't her relatives; it was his ancestors. So we mapped it all out together, and I came up with, yes, we are related. I could figure it out because the two brothers coming from England, and so I wrote it all out. And as far as I was concerned, that was the history. However, the next year, what an opportunity when they were giving away free DNA tests. And so I did it right on the spot, and it was a swab, and it was Y. So it was male lines, and of course, if you can find another male with your DNA or your last name, it's Y, and going back, it goes back straight. So I said, can I have a kit and take it to somebody? And they said yes. They get them free. So I took this kit and I went back, and this time I took my wife with me, and we're sitting around having sandwiches and stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they're bringing out more photos and all this good stuff, the wonderful things. And we were there about an hour, and then I pulled out this DNA kit and plunked it on the coffee table. And I said, by the way, would you mind doing a DNA test? My wife was horrified. She says, how could you ask a stranger, who you really don't know that well, and to do a DNA test? You know? I said, well, I'll give it a shot. She said, oh, no problem. What do I have to do? So I submitted his DNA, and it was, so this is in Canada, and it's going to Utah. So I don't know what happened about the laws or regulations, but there wasn't any problem 10 years ago. Maybe somebody sees it as a problem now. So I sent it in, and I had to do his genealogy. And I did it, so mine was back 4 generations, and I did his back 4 generations. Our connection, though, from what I did on my research, was the 5th great-grandfather. So I only submitted mine to 4, his to 4, so there really wasn't between any of us, because I know they're going to put both of them on the internet, but I didn't want to give them all the information and make, you know, somehow, just to make it pure and not corrupted, that nobody was going to make a connection because I said it was this way it was. So his came in independently, and it took about 6 months. And when the results came up, they were almost identical. So now we're going back to the 5th great-grandfather. They were like brothers. There was a slight variation in one of them, but you know, I couldn't believe it. I thought there'd be much more. Like Merv was saying 5, and that's what it was. It was 5 generations. I couldn't believe how accurate it was. Just that it was a tiny little variation, but it was, you would think we were brothers. So that confirmed my research. I was pretty certain that I had it anyway. But what a confirmation Now, there's skeletons in the closet and all this other stuff can happen. In my case, it was pure. It was right on. But if you have somebody that if there's a different father in there somewhere, yeah, so things can happen, or someone's adopted, you don't know about it. Somewhere back line they've adopted and they never, in the history it doesn't say adopted. So that stuff will mess it all up, right? Because the DNA won't even look the same. So, but in this case it was. So that was just a confirmation that this DNA stuff really, really works. And for the Y, it is the best. If you're male, same last name. So it just works out. Anyway, that was just a lark. I just did it as a lark. But going back to Ancestry, because they have it up on Ancestry, and then they made it, the tree and stuff, and I have since filled in a lot more. But because of that, people have contacted me from out of the blue, just randomly around the world. So I got this email from this lady in England. The last name I didn't recognize, and when you get these things, you wonder if they're really, what they want. But what it was, she says, because I started putting those things in the 5th generation and the 6th generation and stuff, and she says, we're related. Well, this just happens that in the mountainside, there are very few males. The only 2 males left after, from 7 generations ago, all live in Canada from the 2 brothers, because all the rest of them, either males that died or early, or males that didn't marry, didn't have children. Most were female, so you lose track of them. And in Canada, similar situation. So there really aren't many male now. So that's good for genealogy. When if you find one, you figure, oh, that's not too bad.
Do you have any sons?
Yeah, two sons.
Does he have sons?
No, they don't. Neither one have children. So, she contacted me, and how often would you have someone do this for you? She said, I'm going to send you a prayer book. This is 1764.
Oh.
And in the back, all the genealogy that I had done, and in collaboration with other people in the family, in this prayer book are the husband and wife when they're married, and all their kids, and when they're born.
17.
Well, they were, it starts, they were married in 1788. Okay. So, and all their kids. So, some people had put some genealogy on there, and if you go to the Ancestry.com, you can find its indexes, basically, and a lot of baptisms. But so the genealogy that some people put up there, it was the baptism dates, and they were about 3 months off of what's in here. This is actual birth dates. So this is a copy, and I would say, why would somebody do this? She actually has the Bible, which has duplicate. They had the Bible in a prayer book, and they wrote the same thing in each one. And the handwriting, because I did find the marriage certificate on Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com is lovely. It's worth the money as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, if you want to be cheap about it, don't bother. But I get so much out of it. So I did find on the site their marriage certificate. It's on the late 1700s, and the handwriting is not his. The handwriting is hers. That makes sense, right? The mother's writing all this stuff. So you can see his handwriting, you can see her handwriting, and it's her handwriting. So that was just something that you don't know when you do these things, what'll come back to you. Like you're sharing wonderful things with your family, and you've got wonderful things from other people. So she contacted me because of Ancestry, because my email address, which isn't shown, by the way, if anybody doesn't know that, they don't know. If you see something on Ancestry and it's my family, you can contact me, but you got to go through Ancestry, and they send it to me, And then I can go back to them and we can correspond that way, or we can just decide to share each other email address and do it directly. But you can stay anonymous if you wish. And the other thing that happened was I got a letter last August from the Attorney General of Ontario. And it was from the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee. I did share this with you in December, but I was asked to do it again because it's DNA. So, and it was, somebody died, and they determined I was related to them, and they died without a will. So the public guardian has to disperse the estate, right? And they found me through Ancestry.
Wow. Wow.
They have people that must be genealogists on their staff or something that look at this stuff, and they found me because I had this person on the tree. I put people on there, and you know, she was deceased, so I put her up. So they saw that on Ancestry. Well, who is putting this on here? So contacted me and asked me verify who I am, who my siblings are, who any relatives I know that are living are, and I got it all on my database, and I had more obviously on my database that I never put up there. And when I sent it in, they verified it and said, yes, we just wanted you to do that. And they confirmed. And because it's the government of Ontario, they have access to all the births, deaths, marriages, all the certificates. And I said, so you need to see my birth certificate and my parents' marriage certificate? He said, no, we have that.
We got you.
But my sister had the same in her marriage certificate. And my other sister did too, because their last names are different now. And they had to prove that that's who they are. So it's just an interesting story that, you know, what goes around comes around, you know, like, you never
So
know.
did you have to do something with this person that died in testate?
I'm still waiting for the cash, but
First, did you have to help them? How did you help them? Why did you
I sent in every detail about every person that was still living.
related to her?
Yes.
Okay.
And there were two cousins that I don't know what happened to them. And I just heard they left town from Hamilton. And turns out this guy knew. This guy's a lawyer. He said, oh, well, we know where they are. And I said, oh. And it turns out one was deceased and died in Hamilton. And I didn't know that. And I said, that's odd. How do you know? I said, I would have known if there was an obituary in Hamilton newspaper. My sister lives there. And he says, there was no obituary. These people are really good. But it was a good news story. And so, I mean, don't be afraid to share.
The check's in the mail.
And DNA works.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I want to thank everyone who's come this evening, and I hope that you enjoyed our evening here. We're going to now pause for a break and have a little personal chit chat and talk and coffee and cookies and you name it. So I hope everyone that has live streamed with us has enjoyed their evening as well, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.